So with that optimistic note, I want us to delve into, if you're up to it, Andrew, still, let's delve into quick statements and spreadsheets, and maybe we can show something live rather than um, like showing them an actual spreadsheet that you've been using, and how it connects to quick statements and why we need quick statements, etc.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to reshare another tab so we can show the more complex thing here. So let me see if I can bring that up. Wikidata. I might have to just share this whole thing. I think it's okay. So I just shared a thing. So you can put that up there. Perfect. So this is something that may be a little bit dizzying, but I think it's not that hard to figure out once I explain it to you. So this is an example of a task that is commonly done in our community. We actually have these edit-a-thons where we work with museums, and we in some way kind of challenge or work with them and say, hey, well, what is your list of things you wish were in Wikidata or Wikipedia? Or what is the list of prominent people that you think have not been put into Wikipedia yet? And let's work together to get that in there. So this is typically what you'll see, is at least this column right here. So this is a list of names of women in aerospace. So this is working with the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. And we asked them, like, oh, give us a list of prominent women that, we should either have in Wikipedia and Wikidata, or we need to improve their content. And typically what we do with a Wikipedia edit-a-thon is we start with a list like this, and we just kind of manually hunt around in Wikipedia during the edit-a-thon to figure out what exists there. And, there's a usefulness in that. It's kind of like almost like a scavenger hunt or a group hunting expedition. Like, this is very useful. What we start to do, or what I want to do beforehand, well, let's see if we can get some better homework done before the edit-a-thon so we can have better goals out there. So this is what we came up with. So as Shani said, I was one of the earlier ones to use Wikidata in the classroom, and we kind of did it in this way, in something similar to this. What we said was, well, what if before the edit-a-thon we could look up all this information beforehand and then figure out the quality of those articles? And we used to go in by hand and look at each of these articles, but we have this really cool tool now in the Wikipedia universe called ORES, O-R-E-S, and that stands for Objective Revision Score. Let me look up what that actually looks like because it's a complex thing. So it is a system called Objective. Wow, the ORES page does not even explain what the acronym means. Let's go and take a look. Objective Revision Scoring System. There we go. They are not doing a good job of explaining their own product there. Anyway, so what we see here is that you can actually feed this thing, which has been trained, again, AI in our ecosystem here. What the ORES system is a machine learning system that has been fed thousands and thousands of articles saying, this is an article you can look at, Mr. AI. Here's the rating. Here's another article. Here's the rating. Here's our. So if you feed enough of this into the AI, it starts to learn, and it says, okay, now I know what a good article looks like, and now I know what a B class article, what a C class article, what a start looks like. That's what we have here. So believe it or not, it is looking at the Wikipedia article and then giving it a score. The first thing we're doing here actually is look at here. We're looking at each of these items here. So this is a name that the Smithsonian Museum has given us. What this column does here is, with a formula, is using Wikipedia functions in the spreadsheet software, which is Google Sheets, and then doing a lookup of that person in Wikipedia and bringing back what we call a Rev ID. This is the latest version of the Wikipedia article that it can find. And it has a unique identifier there, which is 937842999. So every revision of an article in Wikipedia has a unique identifier, and that's what it is right now. If I go in and update the article in Betty Skelton and save a new version, this number would change to the newest revision. But what's cool about this is once you find this, you can feed this revision ID into ORES and get a rating or a score. So this is pretty cool in that the revision score says this is a good article, which is pretty neat. So let's go ahead and double check it. So if I go in here, I can click on this.
Andrew, just before you go on, just a quick note to the students who might not know this. English Wikipedia has a rating system that not all Wikipedias have. For instance, Hebrew Wikipedia doesn't have it. But the cool thing is, can you go back to the article itself so I can show them where they can look? Yes. So, well, there it was. Oh yeah, here it is. So at the top of many, not all I think, but many articles on English Wikipedia, you can find this score. And if you go to the talk page, you'll get some more details of how it went about. And this system that Andrew describes, ORES, what it does is it was fed all of these articles that humans actually rated, right? Wikipedians rated these articles. And then it kind of learned what a featured article looks like, what a stub looks like. And this is, and what Andrew showed on the tab in the spreadsheet is basically, where's the strap? Yes, so this is what ORES thinks this article should be rated, right? So this gives us a sense of where the article is. Do we need to, is it a stub? Is it just a start level? Is it a featured article? Where is it? How much work do we still need to put into this to make it a good article? So this is all automated, right? So if you can see, Andrew is standing in a specific square here, or rectangle, or in a specific
cell. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Cell. I lost the word for a second. So you're in a specific cell, and there is a formula at the top, and all of this is happening automatically through this cool spreadsheet extension for Wikidata, right?
Correct. That's right.
Wikipedia and Wikidata. Yeah.
And it may be confusing to folks because you're looking at the article, right? And it says it's a C-class article. And if you look at the talk page, sorry, if I go to talk page, you say it says rated C class, but then someone rated start class. And then if I look on here, it says it's good. What's the truth here? So this is, we're in a really interesting transitional state where we used to really, not used to, we still do, but it's very flawed. We rely on human beings to hand rate the articles. So there's a whole huge backlog, meaning that we cannot rate them fast enough. So this C-class rating is really old. It's really stale. It's actually inaccurate. This is a rating, if you look at the history, probably is years old. Like you can see that, look, no one's edited really this talk page since 2017. So it's actually at least 3 years old. That C rating is there, right? So someone had rated C class and it's more than 3 years old. In fact, the AI system here is actually much better in general than human beings. So I'm not one of those AI, utopianists that says, oh, AI is going to take over the world. But for this very specific narrow case, the AI, having been trained with years and thousands of articles and human ratings, comes up with a pretty darn good rating. And so if you look at this article, just eyeball it, use your eyeballs, you will see that it's got lots of links, it's got lots of pictures, it's got lots of references. If you look at the bottom here, it's pretty well referenced. This is really not a C-class article. It's quite decent. It's quite good. So the truth might be somewhere between a C and a good article, but it is quite good in that sense, right? So this is quite interesting here. If you look at this is, again, column A, we write in and provide this list right here. Everything else from column B over is auto-generated. That's pretty fascinating if you think about it, right? So what happens is it takes this. If you look at the formula, so folks here are familiar with Microsoft Excel or spreadsheets, you can see that this is the function, rev_id. This is actually trying to find out what's the latest version of the Wikipedia article, and it brings this back. This is making an API call. So even if you're not a programmer, you can use Google Sheets to do API calls. I find this hugely empowering. This is what I love seeing, is that you don't have to be a programmer to utilize programmer-like capabilities or power here, right? So
Exactly.
if you know how to use a spreadsheet, you just put in, oh, I want the wiki reb ID of this thing, and here you are. This is the API call, and you don't have to know JSON or the scary stuff that brings back ugly statements back to you as a programmer. So again, you take this and you say, I want the ORAS score of this number here, and there you are. It's a GA. I want a link to that article. That's fine. I've written that formula for you automatically. Hey, I want the Wikidata item for that. No problem. I've written a function called Wikidata QID, and well, I haven't written the whole thing, but I've written this extension of that function there, and it brings you back the Wikidata item. So look at this. I can click on this and visit the Wikidata item, and there we are. Betty Skelton Erdy. Oh my goodness, I should make a fix right now. It's like she's also known as Betty Skelton, but that's not an alias. So I want to go in here and make that an alias like that. Right? So I've made an edit just to fix that right there. And what do we see? It retrieved the Wikidata description because we have a function called Wikidata descriptions. And it's actually grabbed this content here, right? And brought it into a spreadsheet cell right there. I find this super cool. Like, it's like I can now hit the data of Wikidata and Wikipedia in a way that comes back to Google Spreadsheets. I can also bring back to see whether there's an image there. So I can see Betty Skelton, we do have an image for her, but then some folks we don't. You can see here when it says ref, this is either someone who maybe we don't have a free image of, or they're so old we don't have one. Sometimes we have it missing. Come over here, this is the occupation brought back by Wikidata. See, racing driver. If I go over here, what is her occupation? Hopefully it says racing driver here, aircraft pilot. I just bring back the first one. I should probably do better to bring back both. But we can see here that what is her entry in VAF, which is the most popular library database in the world. We can see that she has an entry in this. She has an entry in the Library of Congress. And then I have some fields out here. I can actually generate quick statements here if I find out there's something I want to fill in over here. I can show you that later on. But you can see that a whole bunch of folks here do not have Library of Congress information here. So if I were at an edit-a-thon or some kind of activity, I could say, hey, let's go and try to fill in all this information for these people. And that's something that you could do during the edit-a-thons to fill in those details right there. Okay. Another cool thing is once we have all this information about whether start class or stub class, I have another sheet within the bigger spreadsheet that does an analysis. So this is pretty cool. So this shows me that none of them are featured article status. Ooh, boo. I wish they were. But we have some that are good, some that are, most of them are C class or start class, and some are stub. So I might say this is something we should focus on, is let's fix these stubs. But it gives us a graph simply because we entered in the names in that column. We can create a overall health graph of those articles as a set, which are pretty cool.
Andrew, can you, is the link to the spreadsheet available through the presentation that you gave? Because I have the link to the presentation, but not necessarily to this, and maybe folks can.
I've just sent it in the private chat, so you can take a look at that if you want to see that.
Okay, awesome.
Yep. And, there are some limitations. I'm glad you brought that up. There are some limitations of the approach in that notice that right now there's 33 or more like 32 entries in this. Each time you load it up, it is making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe like 10 API calls per row. It's not very efficient. I admit that. So if you load up 32 rows, it's probably making like 300 calls to the interface of the Wikimedia servers. That's a lot in kind of one shot. So sometimes you will see it throttled, like it needs to wait for this information to come back. This certainly does not scale if you're doing it for like 1,000 rows. Probably it scales up to about 50 to 100 quite nicely. But beyond that, you might have to find a different tool or break it up into different batches to do this. So I think it's quite working sets of like 30 to 50 to 100. Once you go beyond that, you are starting to almost like pepper the Wikimedia servers with too many requests in one shot. And we probably need to find better ways of handling that in the future. But for now, it's really nice for small sets, especially for edit-a-thons. So for analysis, I think it's really nice to say, here's the overall health of these articles that we're looking at. Another thing that's quite neat is that sometimes we use this tool for figuring out, what are the highest priority headshots or images that we should get. So if you click on headshot priority, this is kind of neat. And that shows you the images for each of these folks. So just visually, it's quite nice to see that, oh, Betty Skelton has this black and white one, but it might be tough to get an image of her. But you can see that these are quite nice ones, probably press shots, because they're, either members of NASA or they're in the Air Force or something like that, right? You can see the astronaut ones are really quite good because they're government photos. Sometimes they're quite casual, or sometimes they're missing. So this is quite nice that it gives us a overview of what are the image quality, what's the image quality of each of these shots here. And then if you click on here for headshots, you can see that it even gives you the links out to the actual file names there. And we use this sometimes if we're at, let's say we're doing an event where we're at a book festival, and we actually have all those authors in the hall there. So if we're saying, oh, we're missing that picture, we can go and find the author giving a talk and get a picture of that author right away and upload that to Wikipedia. And that's a useful thing to have as well. So this is just a very easy way to, in a spreadsheet format, hit the APIs and get some basic information about these folks that are easier to digest in one glance like this. Okay, any questions?
I was asking before I was rudely disconnected by my Wi-Fi, if there's an easy way to see out of this list what exists or not in Hebrew Wikipedia, for instance.
That's a good question. Let me see. That's a good question. We could. Yeah, right now, I don't know if all these tools are necessarily multilingual friendly. I mean, some things are. Like if you look at this, if I'm looking at this Wiki Auras, you can see that it says HEEN Wiki. But I don't think HE has been. There is no OR score for Hebrew, is there? No, there's not. It just brings back nothing. So if you have English Wiki, it's there. But most of the other things have not been normalized for multilingual at this point. But we can do one of them for. I mean, we can talk afterwards and see if we can customize some of these for Hebrew. Yeah, because right now this Wiki Rev ID is specific to English Wikipedia. But if you look at if you go under Tools and say Script Editor, this starts to get into the weeds a little bit more. But you can actually customize any of this code to be another language, right? So right now, this Rev ID, if you look down here, is specific to English right there. See that? But if you change this to Hebrew, then, or HE, right, that will fix that. So we can, make another function for Hebrew. But we can try that after the session or something like that. What I will reset to do is showing you how right now the spreadsheet is not terribly multilingual friendly. That has been one of the things that has been on the back burner or something I'd love to do. But right now it is hard coded for some things for English Wikipedia, but it's not hard to fix. So let me show anyone who might have a little bit of inclination to get technical, but it's actually not that hard. All the code that you see running to make these said spreadsheet cells work, most of it is under a tool called Wikipedia and Wikidata tools. So this is actually really useful just to show you that you should add on things. So you can say get add-on, and you should add the Wikipedia tools. I believe it's the only thing in there. So if you say Wikipedia and Wikidata tools like that, make sure you add this. You can see it has a very high rating. A lot of people have installed it. So make sure you have installed that. Once you have that, most of these functions should work. But you can also customize some of these things. So the tool didn't have some of the functions I wanted. So you can actually go into Tools, Script Editor, and you can actually add new functions there. So if you're in the spreadsheet that I just showed you, you can actually go in and see some of the functions that I wrote. So this is one which is used for Wiki Rev ID. And you can see that this is just hard-coded to English right now. If I were friendly, I would have said, you know, one of the things you pass into Wiki Rev ID is like what language you're talking about. But unfortunately, I haven't done that here. So anyone who wants to, you can actually modify this to either have someone pass in the language code, or you can just say Wiki Hebrew Rev ID and then change this to the Hebrew English code right there, right? So that is something that you can try on your own. So that is something that doesn't quite work completely with every language, but hopefully someone who wants to do that can do that. Now, let me show you something you can do with the spreadsheet. That the reason why I wanted to do this in a spreadsheet, first of all, was I wanted to modify some of these things, but not by hand all the time in Wikidata. So for example, let's say right now we have the retrieved Wikidata description from the Wikidata entry that says, Betty Skelton is an American aerobatic pilot test driver advertising executive. So let's say I wanted to change this. I could go in here and say edit and then try to edit that by hand. But what if I want to make all these changes in the spreadsheet here and then affect them later on? So one thing I could do is say, you know, I want this to be slightly different. And let's go out here, and I have this field here, which I call DEN. This means the description in English. So what I can do is paste in my new desired text. And let's say I wanted to make it grammatically correct and say, American aerobatic pilot test driver, let's say auto test driver and advertising executive. So if I want this to be my new description, I hit return. What's really cool is I've written a formula here that says, grab the Q number, which is right here, add the description in English, and then add the text there. So this is a perfectly formed quick statement. So it basically is the Q number, a pipe character, and then what property. Normally you will put like P31, P5, whatever you want to do here. You would say here instead DEN means description in English, and then American aerobatic test pilot. So I can actually copy this, and let's hope I can do this. Wikidata quick. Wikidata has been a little bit slow of late, but it's not too bad. Let's go in here and say, let's go to quick statements. And quick statements is a tool. I never liked that it's not easy to get to the tool. But here is quick statements. Let me log in so I am validated to make changes. And I'm going to make a new batch. Oh, what happened here? Oh, allow. There I am. I don't know why I need to do it twice. Now, there's my quick statement. Notice that it's Q4898974. The description in English is going to be changed to this. It's all in double quotes there. I can say import those commands, and you will see that is ingested, is successfully said, has not done it yet, is basically saying, this is what I will be doing. I will be changing Betty Skelton's entry to read her description will be this. Now let's go ahead and hit run. Hopefully Wikidata is not too slow today. And while it's doing that, it is done. Look at that. It is successful. So let me go into my Wikidata account, hit contributions, and you will see that, sure enough, hooray, Betty Skelton has been changed to this description now using quick statements, and it has a batch number to keep me accountable, right? They can say, okay, this person is not doing good things. Let me look for everything he did in that batch, right? So this is quick statements, and it's tagged it with quick statements doing that. And this is pretty cool that if I want to, I can march down here and say, you know, make a bunch of changes. This is clearly nonsense. You know, I could actually go in here and select this entire set right there, go into quick statements and say new batch, and look at that. That's don't hit run. It's going to hit the wrong thing. But anyway, you can see that this is a really cool way to make a lot of changes in one shot, right? I can do all my work in my spreadsheet here, spend all my time here, but then copy the whole column there, bring in the quick statements, and then hit run. Don't hit run, and it'll affect all that change in one shot there. So does that answer your question, Shani? This is a really nice way to do quick statements in one.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. This is excellent.
So I highly encourage you to learn quick statements. It is the way that we do a lot of changes in one shot. If you want, as I showed before at the Met example, if you want to create a new thing, you hit create. Then you can say last. You can say my P31, it's an instance of, and then don't ask me why I know all these things by heart. I'm sure Shani does as well. Once you work with Wikidata a long time, you know all these things by heart. That's creating a new item. It's a P31, an instance of. Q5 is a human being. The cool thing is, you don't have to know English, Hebrew, whatever. Like, this is a kind of a universal language of just P31, Q5. That's an instance of a human. But a person speaking Portuguese or Chinese or Japanese would enter the exact same thing if you know the P numbers and Q numbers there. And then you just keep saying last, and then you can say things like my P195, which is collection, is a... Oh, oops, sorry. I have that as a shortcut there. But, you can put in whatever Q number you want if that's your collection or institution. And that's just really a beautiful thing about quick statements is you don't have to go into the individual item. You can actually do it by batch commands, as we call them here. Right? So if I say here import, you can see it's going to say it's going to create a new item and it's going to be instance of human. And you can choose whatever language you want and see it in that language there, right? And that's the beautiful thing of doing this. Yep. Any other questions, Shani?
No, I think this has been amazing for the students. So on that optimistic note, thank you so much for everything. It's been a pleasure having you, and I hope the students benefit from it. If you do have questions, I will be sure to forward them to you. And
yeah, I'm the great thing about it is, especially for the spreadsheet format that we have here, feel free to play with it. Copy the spreadsheet as you see here. Just go to File, make a copy, and then put in your own list of articles. Do your own things, do your own investigations. And I think a tool like this is quite useful if you're dealing with 10, 20, maybe 30 items, just to play with it. We found that making people dealing with lists and improvement of articles that are biographies of women, especially, this has been very useful to very quickly find out what's the overall quality of these things. And I worked with multiple GLAM organizations, and this has been a huge help. Like, I worked with folks I've never met before, with institutions I've never visited before, like the War Museum in New Zealand. And they had a question about the quality of their articles. And I said, oh, let me just drop in your subjects that you're interested in here. And I showed this to them, and they went, whoa, I never knew you could do this. I'm like, yeah, you can find out the overall health of the topics you're interested in just by looking at this graph. And this is, not standard part of Wikipedia or Wikidata. This is just my little tool I cobbled together that I've used once in a while. And I wish we had a more standard way of showing new folks or collaborators some of these basic ways of accessing our content that isn't just one article, one Wikidata item. We should be able to look at groups of things in ways more friendly like this.
For us, the big thing would be to basically, because in general, we heavily rely on English Wikipedia to translate, then having the ability to see what is missing, like we have for women in red lists, would be amazing. To actually see it in a spreadsheet and then create quick statements right away. So yeah, we'll try that. And the students are actually working on articles that are missing on Hebrew Wikipedia from the Women in Red list that we have in Hebrew, which is based on the English. So they're translating in any case. So yeah, that would be amazing to try to actually do it like that.
Yeah, and
we'll try that. And
the great thing is, all you need is one person in your class, or just maybe a TA or someone you can find to do the work, is to just modify what I was too lazy to do, or I wasn't front of mind at the time, but to turn this function into something that's multilingual friendly, and then you're off to the races. In fact, that'd be a great service to the rest of the world, is that it's not just making it useful for Hebrew, but for any language. and just to say, pass in the language as a parameter, and then that fixes this problem that you see right here. And that would be a great thing to do.
Yeah, we definitely, that would be a great service. We will find someone to do it. And I wonder if ORIS would be working on other languages. That's interesting too, because again, not every system. So that would be interesting to check.
Right, and I think the person who does it, Aaron Halfacker, he's always looking for new languages to help. To help ingest into the machine learning system. And in general, you just need a few thousand articles that have been rated by hand somewhere as the starting set. And you may already have it in Hebrew.
Yeah. Yeah, we do have featured articles, at least that, and we do have stubs, so the system can start there, I guess. And I'll reach out to Aaron. That's a good idea. And we'll try to make it work. I'll let you know how it goes.
Right.
And again, thank you so much for the inspiration and all the amazing work that you're doing out there. And we'll be in touch.
Great. Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.